The majority believes accumulating currency represents the path toward prosperity. They clutch each unit of monetary value tightly, convinced that expenditure equals permanent loss. However, this constitutes deception perpetuated by the identical apparatus designed to maintain your perpetual employment. Reality proves far grimmer. Capital exclusively expands through circulation. The affluent never retain their resources statically but rather strategically position them. Each monetary unit they allocate functions as a warrior dispatched to capture additional territory. Conversely, the economically disadvantaged imprison their funds behind barriers, mistaking confinement for protection when it actually represents fiscal termination. Your conditioning revolves around loss anxiety. Throughout childhood, authority figures proclaimed save your currency, avoid hazards, maintain security. They failed to recognize they were instilling servitude mentality. The sovereign doesn't experience loss apprehension but rather exploits it purposefully. The sovereign comprehends that acquiring genuine authority necessitates trading immediate gratification for sustained dominance. Every domain, every fortune, every lineage emerged from individuals who expended resources when contemporaries hoarded. Machiavelli grasped this principle centuries previously. He witnessed ambitious individuals construct empires while cautious individuals constructed nothing. Today, I'll demonstrate why your prosperity remains perpetually distant and precisely what transformations are required. However, initially, acknowledge this. If currency currently occupies your possession, you're administering it incorrectly. Number 1. Wealth doesn't originate from preservation. It originates from strategic deployment. You've encountered the narrative countless occasions. An individual labors diligently for decades, deposits modest amounts consistently, and eventually retires with adequate resources for basic survival. Society celebrates this individual as financially responsible. But here's undeniable reality. They sacrifice their entire existence for mediocrity. They possess resources during youth when vitality existed for utilization but withheld them. Now possessing resources during advanced age, vitality for expenditure has dissipated. That represents tragedy, not achievement. Machiavelli stated that fortune favors the audacious. Preservation isn't audacity. Preservation constitutes surrender. Capital accumulation serves zero purpose without deployment. Monetary value isn't intended for observation. It's designed for multiplication. Consider currency as an instrument. A blade resting idly performs no function. A blade employed skillfully conquers territories. Your resources function identically. Positioned statically in financial repositories earning negligible interest, they accomplish nothing. However, invested strategically in revenue-producing mechanisms, education, enterprises, assets, relationships, they generate returns exceeding your initial contribution. This is why affluent individuals grow increasingly wealthy. They comprehend that genuine prosperity isn't measured by retention volume but by circulation velocity. They don't merely possess resources. They orchestrate capital through systems continuously producing additional value. Meanwhile, individuals fixated on preservation remain perpetually impoverished because they're engaging in the incorrect competition entirely. They're preserving resources while others multiply them. That's equivalent to hoarding seeds instead of planting fields. Number 2. Impoverished individuals avoid expenditure. Prosperous individuals strategically allocate. Here's the distinction most people misunderstand. Squandering and investing are entirely different. Squandering means exchanging currency for depreciating items. Latest technological devices, luxury vehicles, trendy apparel. These purchases generate zero returns. Their value diminishes immediately. That constitutes squandering. Investing means allocating capital toward appreciating items. Knowledge, competencies, enterprises, possessions, networks. These generate returns perpetually. That constitutes investment. Financially struggling individuals consistently squander resources. They purchase items generating temporary satisfaction but permanent depreciation. They finance vehicles they can't afford, accumulate obligations for momentary pleasures, and remain perpetually trapped. Affluent individuals consistently invest resources. They allocate towards skill development. They acquire enterprises. They establish systems. They construct assets. Every allocation represents calculated maneuver toward increased authority. Machiavelli didn't proclaim, "Conserve your resources and prosperity will manifest." He proclaimed, "Execute boldly and fortune will favor you." Execution requires allocation. The prosperous understand something the impoverished don't. Resources spent strategically aren't lost. They're positioned for multiplication. Consider education. When you invest thousands in legitimate skill development that increases earning capacity, you haven't squandered those thousands. You've positioned them strategically. That knowledge generates returns indefinitely. Consider enterprises. When you allocate toward establishing revenue systems, you're not squandering capital. You're constructing mechanisms that generate value perpetually. This mindset shift represents everything. Stop perceiving expenditure as loss. Start perceiving strategic allocation as force multiplication. Your resources represent soldiers. Squandering means sacrificing them meaninglessly. Investing means deploying them strategically where they capture additional territory. Number 3. Risk aversion doesn't protect you. It imprisons you. Society programs you toward risk avoidance. Don't invest unless guaranteed. Don't initiate enterprises. Don't attempt anything potentially resulting in loss. You know what that philosophy creates? A population of wage laborers too terrified to pursue anything superior. Let me clarify something. Risk is inevitable. You're experiencing risk currently. Remaining employed represents risk. What occurs when your employer eliminates your position? What occurs when your industry becomes obsolete? What occurs when inflation erodes your stagnant wages? That's risk, but nobody labels it as such because society normalizes trading existence for modest security. Here's what Machiavelli understood. The greatest risk is avoiding all risks. When you refuse resource allocation, refuse skill investment, refuse calculated opportunities, you're not maintaining security. You're guaranteeing mediocrity. The prosperous don't avoid risk. They manage it strategically. They comprehend that substantial rewards demand substantial risks. However, they don't gamble recklessly. They analyze, calculate, and execute when advantage exists. This is why affluent individuals appear comfortable with ventures that terrify average individuals. It's not because they're inherently audacious. It's because they've developed skills for risk evaluation. They recognize which opportunities merit pursuit and which don't. Meanwhile, most individuals avoid everything because they never developed evaluation capabilities. They perceive all ventures as equivalent danger. That's ignorance, not prudence. If you desire prosperity, you must become comfortable with strategic risk. That means investing in yourself even when outcomes aren't guaranteed. That means allocating toward opportunities with favorable probabilities. That means occasionally accepting losses as education fees. Because here's truth. You'll either invest in yourself or spend your existence enriching someone else. That's the actual choice. Risk or regret. Most people select regret and wonder why they never prosper. Number 4. The impoverished purchase time. The prosperous purchase freedom. Here's something most people never recognize. What you purchase reveals your financial trajectory. Impoverished individuals purchase time. They acquire convenience. They obtain items making today slightly easier. Delivery services. Entertainment subscriptions. Processed foods. Trivial luxuries. These items provide temporary comfort but construct nothing enduring. Prosperous individuals purchase freedom. They acquire items liberating them from limitations. They invest in automation. They hire personnel. They purchase education, eliminating ignorance. They acquire assets, generating passive revenue. Each purchase moves them toward autonomy from obligatory labor. The distinction? Impoverished individuals ask, will this make today easier? Prosperous individuals ask, will this make tomorrow freer? That's why they allocate differently. Impoverished individuals spend hundreds monthly on subscriptions providing entertainment. Prosperous individuals spend hundreds monthly on courses providing capabilities. Both spent identical amounts. One purchased distraction. Another purchased advancement. Machiavelli stated the prince must learn how not to be virtuous, and to utilize this knowledge or not according to necessity. Translation? Sometimes you must sacrifice immediate pleasure for long-term power. This applies to finances. You must sacrifice today's comfort for tomorrow's control. That means instead of purchasing convenience, you purchase capability. Instead of purchasing distraction, you purchase development. Instead of purchasing momentary satisfaction, you purchase systems generating perpetual value. This isn't deprivation. It's strategic allocation. Every dollar spent on genuinely appreciating assets is a dollar working perpetually for your liberation. Every dollar wasted on depreciating purchases is a dollar you'll need to earn again. Which sounds like superior mathematics? Number 5. You're not broke. You're merely investing in the wrong things. Most people claiming poverty actually possess resources. They're simply allocating them toward items maintaining poverty. They spend on appearing prosperous rather than becoming prosperous. They finance expensive vehicles. They purchase designer labels. They maintain lavish lifestyles funded by obligations. They're investing in perception, not reality. And perception doesn't generate compound returns. Here's brutal honesty. If you possess resources for luxury vehicle payments, you possess resources for investments. If you possess resources for premium subscriptions, you possess resources for education. If you possess resources for restaurants weekly, you possess resources for skill development. The issue isn't resource scarcity. It's priority misalignment. Prosperous individuals invest in substance, expertise, assets, systems, relationships with other successful individuals. These investments appreciate and generate returns. Impoverished individuals invest in appearance, status symbols, temporary pleasures, items impressing others but building nothing. These investments depreciate and generate obligations. Machiavelli observed that people evaluate by sight more than touch, because everyone can observe but few can truly assess. Translation? Most people waste resources trying to look prosperous to observers who can't actually evaluate genuine prosperity. That's why they remain trapped. They're performing for audiences that don't matter. Meanwhile, truly prosperous individuals invest in capabilities audiences never witness because those capabilities generate actual results. Stop purchasing items for external validation. Start purchasing items constructing actual value. Your bank account won't transform until your purchasing psychology transforms. When you prioritize substance over appearance, everything changes. Because substance appreciates. Appearance depreciates. Substance generates returns. Appearance generates obligations. Substance constructs wealth. Appearance constructs debt. Choose wisely. Number 6. Your network represents your net worth. Invest accordingly. Here's something they don't teach in schools. The most valuable investments aren't financial. They're relational. The individuals you associate with determine your financial trajectory more than your employment, education, or even your current capital. Why? Because prosperity isn't solely about what you know. It's about who knows you. Machiavelli stated the wise prince should maintain friendships in such manner that whether fortune favors or opposes, they remain constant. He understood that relationships represent strategic assets. The prosperous invest aggressively in relationships. They attend conferences. They join exclusive communities. They hire mentors. They allocate thousands, positioning themselves among individuals operating at superior levels. Why? Because exposure to elevated thinking reprograms their perspective. Because proximity to success reveals opportunities invisible from distance. Because relationships with accomplished individuals open doors money alone cannot. This is why affluent individuals spend resources on networking events, masterminds, and private clubs. They're not squandering funds. They're investing in access. And access to the right individuals is worth more than access to capital because the right individuals can generate capital. Meanwhile, most people invest zero in relationships. They associate with identical individuals since childhood. They attend identical places. They discuss identical topics. And they wonder why their circumstances never improve. Your network either elevates you or anchors you. There's no neutral. If everyone in your circle thinks identically to you, you're not growing. You're stagnating. Prosperous individuals intentionally invest in upgrading their associations. They spend on mentorship. They travel to connect with superior minds. They join paid communities where serious individuals gather. Because they understand something crucial. You become the average of your 5 closest associations. If those 5 are broke, you'll be broke. If those 5 are prosperous, you'll become prosperous. It's not mystical. It's mathematical. So ask yourself, are you investing in relationships that elevate you or relationships that anchor you? Because that answer predicts your financial future. Number 7. Education is the ultimate force multiplier. But only if you invest correctly. Most people believe they can't afford education. Truth? They can't afford ignorance. Every year you spend not learning high-value skills is a year you're leaving enormous amounts on the table. Yet people won't invest in themselves. They'll spend hundreds on entertainment but claim education is too expensive. That's poverty thinking. Prosperous individuals allocate aggressively toward knowledge. Not generic education. Strategic education. Skills that multiply earning capacity. Marketing. Sales. Negotiation. Leadership. Financial literacy. Technical expertise. These skills generate returns infinitely exceeding their cost. Why? Because skills compound. When you invest in capability, that capability generates returns forever. Unlike purchases that depreciate, education appreciates. You can't unlearn valuable skills. They're permanent assets generating perpetual dividends. Machiavelli stated there's nothing more difficult than initiating new order of things. Why? Because most people resist change. They resist learning. They resist investing in themselves. But that resistance costs them everything. Consider this mathematics. If you invest 5,000 in skill development that increases your annual income by 10,000, you've achieved 100% annual return. Show me any other investment delivering that. You can't. Because nothing appreciates faster than you. This is why affluent individuals spend heavily on coaches, courses, and consultants. They recognize that one insight can generate millions. One skill can transform industries. One connection can unlock opportunities. But you must invest. You must allocate resources toward your development. Not someday. Now. Because every day you delay is compounding ignorance instead of compounding knowledge. And compounding ignorance guarantees poverty while compounding knowledge guarantees prosperity. Which are you choosing? Number 8. Time is your most valuable currency. Spend it strategically. Here's final truth most people never grasp. Money is renewable. Time is not. You can generate more currency. You cannot generate more moments. Yet most people waste time like it's infinite, while hoarding money like it's scarce. That's completely backwards. The prosperous understand time's true value. They invest money to purchase time. They hire personnel. They automate processes. They eliminate low-value activities. Why? Because they recognize that time invested in high-value activities generates exponentially more return than time wasted on low-value tasks. When a prosperous individual earns $500 hourly but spends 3 hours weekly on tasks worth $20 hourly, they're losing $1,440 weekly. $1,440. They could hire someone for $60 weekly to handle those tasks and deploy that time generating the $500 hourly. That's $1,380 weekly profit just from intelligent allocation. But most people won't make that investment. They'll waste their time on low-value activities because they don't recognize time as valuable currency. They think they're saving money by handling everything themselves. Actually, they're wasting their most precious resource. Machiavelli stated the prince who depends on fortune perishes when fortune changes. Translation? Don't depend on luck. Depend on strategic allocation. And the most strategic allocation is investing money to reclaim time, then investing that time building systems generating passive revenue. This is wealth's actual formula. Not working harder. Not saving more. But investing strategically in assets, skills, relationships, and systems that multiply your time's value. When you comprehend this, everything transforms. You stop hoarding currency and start deploying it strategically. You stop wasting time and start investing it intentionally. You stop thinking like the poor and start operating like the wealthy. We've covered substantial territory, but let me crystallize everything into one undeniable truth. Spending money isn't the problem. Spending it incorrectly is the problem. The impoverished spend on depreciating items. The prosperous spend on appreciating assets. The impoverished purchase comfort. The prosperous purchase capability. The impoverished invest in appearance. The prosperous invest in substance. The impoverished save money and waste time. The prosperous invest money and protect time. See the pattern? It's not about spending versus saving. It's about where you allocate your resources. Every dollar represents a choice. Depreciation or appreciation. Consumption or investment. Poverty or prosperity. And that choice determines everything. Machiavelli understood that fortune favors those who act decisively. Not those who wait. Not those who save. Those who deploy resources strategically when opportunity presents itself. So here's your action plan. First, audit your spending. Identify what's depreciating versus appreciating. Second, redirect funds from consumption to investment. Education. Skills. Assets. Networks. Third, invest in yourself aggressively. Your earning capacity is your greatest asset. Fourth, purchase time through automation and delegation. Fifth, surround yourself with individuals operating at superior levels. Sixth, take calculated risks on opportunities with favorable probabilities. Seventh, stop purchasing appearance and start building substance. Eighth, remember that money only multiplies when it moves. If you implement these principles, your financial trajectory transforms. Not eventually. Rapidly. Because you'll be operating on entirely different principles than the majority. While they save and stagnate, you'll invest and accelerate. While they fear loss, you'll pursue calculated gains. While they waste time, you'll purchase freedom. That's the difference between poverty and prosperity. Not luck. Not inheritance. Not lottery tickets. Strategic allocation of resources toward appreciating assets that compound perpetually. If this perspective shifted how you view money, demonstrate it. Like this video if you're committed to investing rather than hoarding. Share it with someone trapped in poverty thinking. Subscribe for more content exposing the truth about wealth building that conventional wisdom conceals. Comment below with one investment you're making in yourself this month. Because talk is worthless. Action generates results. The choice is yours. Continue operating like the poor, saving pennies while opportunities pass. Or start operating like the wealthy, deploying resources strategically toward assets that multiply. One path leads to mediocrity. The other leads to prosperity. And you already know which you're choosing. Now prove it through action.